God, it's friends living well.
We're just girls. We're just fucking girls. And I've never claimed to be anything but a stupid girl. We're just girls.
All right, well, to get us started, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. It is episode 36 of Friends Living Well. My name is Nikita Mahone. I'm the co-founder of Full Living Wellness, which is a private practice operating out of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Florida, and California. And we offer a range of services: individual, couples, family therapy, group. We do parenting coaching, neurodivergent coaching for adults, as well as supervision. So if you need any resources, that information will be linked in the caption. And I want to welcome a very special guest that we have with us today. Erin, if you could introduce yourself more fully and your practice and where you're practicing from.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Erin Valente. I'm a marriage and family therapist here in Los Angeles. So I work with individuals and couples in California, and I also do psychedelic assisted therapy, which is with ketamine. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you again for coming. And I feel like we're kind of going to do a deep dive. As I was looking at the questions, I was like, these aren't exactly intro questions of just what is couples therapy or how is it necessarily different from individual, which is really good. But I realized both of us working with couples and families in that way, we have some really good questions that I think are going to take us a little bit deeper into what it's like to practice and experience couples therapy. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
For the first one, I thought we could just dive into more of what is the goal or the aim with couples therapy. Maybe to start from your perspective as a therapist, what's your goal within the couples therapy room and in the session?
Really, my goal within the couples therapy is to get couples to understand that being in partnership is a container to understand yourself. Because I think the biggest issue that comes into my room is fix my partner, and then everything will be okay. And yep. And I'm always like, no, this is like your opportunity to like understand yourself, not fix yourself, understand yourself in a deeper way. And so when I can get partners to like grasp onto that idea, it goes so much more smoothly and they get so much out of it.
When they let go of maybe that first assumption or even mindset of like, if you ask me what our relationship needs or what we should work on, my first thought is to maybe look at my partner and focus it in that way. But you're so right, because it's a collaboration and it's a dance, and every relationship is so unique to itself. So couples therapy really kind of opens that door of, what does that dance feel like for the two of you? What do you want it to be?
Yeah. And can we get them to a place of curiosity versus solving, or this idea that once we do this, then everything will be good and everything will be fine and we'll be happy, and it will be like the sort of like fairy tale that we're all sort of sold. And it's going, can you actually just stay in curiosity for yourself and your partner? And I think like that creates longevity.
Absolutely. And it feels like there's so many cultural and development aspects of that. Messages that we inherit, the stories and narratives of love is supposed to look like this, or a relationship is supposed to look like this. And as I said a second ago, it's all unique. So then decide for yourselves, what is it going to be? What do you want it to
Yeah.
be?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my work is like popping certain cultural bubbles. And I'll say to my couples sometimes, I'm going, well, you can't have love without loss. And they're like, man.
Disney did not say that.
I was like, everything ends in death and divorce. So like being worried about it ending, like, could we put that to the side? And everyone's like, can you say that like in a softer way?
It's really overwhelmed. But there is so much freedom in that, because it removes the idea of like fixing or an end result necessarily. It brings it back to be in the process, be together, just be here in the now. And
because I think we do a lot of things trying to control so that it doesn't end, right? A lot of the things that couples bring in, it's these control mechanisms. And it's like, okay, if we can just radically accept that this will end, we don't get to decide when, right? Then we're not just playing with the control dials, and we can really go into the depths of something really beautiful.
there's one phrase that always stuck with me the most to shift from individual to couples, and you already said it, which is, I'm trying to help you understand one another.
Yeah.
And individuals, we're having more of a conversation that's happening between us and to help you. But when it's in couples, there's a lot that I may be withholding from in that way. And I'm more so curious about how are the two people in that room understanding what's being said and connecting themselves before I put that input in there.
Yeah. I tell my couples a lot of the time, I'm just the translator, right? Like, I don't have any skin in the game. So I can hear what you're saying without any other information coming in and vice versa. And so I'm more of like the translator of you two. And the goal is that you won't need a translator because then you can understand each other's languages by the end.
By the end of this, yes. I love that idea of a translator. Somebody to take an outside look at it for you, a fresh pair of eyes, somebody that's unbiased but rooting for both of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having a coach in that way. And then
Yeah.
having the confidence in couples too of like, you guys can figure this out. Keep talking. And if you need me, I'll interrupt or I'll be here. But otherwise, keep going.
Absolutely. And I always say like it's also a collaboration. It's, I think one of the biggest goals within me as a couples therapist is to gain trust of this partnership, because otherwise, how do I fit? Right? Like there has to be trust with the couple and the therapist. And so sometimes I will say, look, there are going to be days where this person is like, oh, Erin really got me. And then the other person might go, she totally missed the mark. And I'm like, if over the span of the entire therapy, you're both like, wow, she really got it, then I've done my job. Right.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be in every session.
It may be something that a lot of people aren't expecting going into therapy, that some sessions will focus on one partner or something particularly with them. And maybe even it's a couple of sessions where you're really honing in on this one. And then the next, it's shifting to another.
Yeah. And I always find it interesting because when there is that shift from one partner to the next, the other partner kind of is like, whoa, this feels overwhelming. And I always say, like, the relationship that I've built with them is what allows it. If I don't have that relationship, that shift can feel like almost like a turning against. And again, like that's what happens in partnership, even intimate partnerships, therapeutic partnerships, work partnerships.
Laughing because when I think of my own defenses, that is one for me. I know of myself, like I will get a little defensive. The fact that you're seeing me so clearly or my vulnerabilities, to have that in the room where you're like, oh, we were talking about your stuff and that felt good. And now all of a sudden eyes are on me and that brings up a lot for us. It's very vulnerable to be seen in that way. And an alliance with a therapist means everything, to remember that person, again, is rooting for both of you, but is an unbiased person that's there to point out the stuff that needs to be pointed out.
Yeah. Because I think sometimes people think that it's going to be even in every session. And I don't know how long your sessions are, but it's impossible for me to keep it even.
That brings us a little bit more into what do you think helps clients in that position to build trust? The beginning approach that I think of, I don't know if you follow any Gottman. There's a lot of Gottman that I like to take, and there's a lot of Gottman that I like to leave and create my own around. But one part of the Gottman approach that I always really loved and appreciated is that first session together and then having 2 individual sessions, where I think of that alliance and being able to pull on that later on in our work. That's always something I cite as to why I request the individual session, is because we're going to get into some deep places and I need to have a relationship with you where I'm on your team and what my goal and my focus is, and I'm with you in this.
Yeah.
When it gets a little hard. But how do you try to help clients in fostering some of that trust and building?
Yeah, I love what you just said, because I do the same thing, but I don't think I thought of it that way. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that is exactly what you're doing. Sometimes I'll frame it as, I just want you to have a space where you can tell me your perspective without having to be careful with your partner. And that also just helps them realize like how often they're being careful, and also how often your partner's being careful for you. Right? Like there's a flip side to both, right? That it's not great to have to be careful, but it's also an act of love in a sense as well. I think for me, the way that I build trust, really, I do bring a lot of humor in it. And I really remind everyone, like, we're just, sometimes we're like silly humans and we do silly things, and we all do it. And so I think when I can bring lightness into the room, it's not as like, okay, we're going to go into the depths and this is so hard. Cause also like, yeah. And couples work is hard. I will say, like, individual work is one thing, but like couples work is like a whole animal. And so I remind my couples, like, it doesn't need to be hard all the time. Right. And I think that's like, this is the whole point of partnership. Like, that's why the love and connection and playfulness it's so important, because you're going to do all this other work. And if you don't have that other stuff, what's the point of all that hard work? It's like, we need it. And so I try to embody that in my sessions.
I think you're so right, Erin, that level of humor and playfulness. And I think of those as strengths in a relationship. So many of us probably don't think of couples therapy as being the place you're going to go go to get strength and positivity, but that really is something that we pull on a lot. We already know the grief, the loss, the trauma, the stressors and difficulties are going to come at us no matter what. We don't really have to try very hard to pull them into session. But
Mhm.
what couples can be really quick to forget is the progress that they've made, the commitments that they've made, how amazing that is, all the strengths and connections that they have. And I love pointing that out in the moment and seeing couples take that like, hey, you're right. Yeah, like we do that. Or like, that is really fun when we're like that. And it's not so bad after all.
Yeah, yeah, and I love, like, asking that question of each other of, when was the last time that he made you feel, like, really seen or you looked at them and they were like, "God, that's my person," right? And I think all of us, right? We just, like, scan over those moments, and they're actually in abundance, but we're more trained to notice, like, what things are wrong,
And
and so I really try to strengthen that part of the brain. I do homework and it's always going to be something yummy and fun and connective versus I want you to think about what we talked about, right?
that's a fun question. What's some of your favorite homeworks in that way for couples specifically?
I usually bring in touch. Touch, I think, is really important. If couples are having a really hard moment, I will ask them, can you at least hold hands? And some people can't do that. And then I'll be like, okay, well, can you like, touch feet? And then they will laugh because that sounds silly because I'll have them touch like the bottom of their feet together, which is like silly and weird. So
And
I don't.
touch is so much a part of that. When I think of play, that goes right over into touch. I'm thinking of conversations I've had where somebody literally just described themselves as passing ships in the night. Like life gets so busy, the kids have their schedules, and before you know it, a whole day, 2 days, a week goes by, and we haven't just stopped for 5 minutes and just hold one another. When
Yeah.
you're with somebody, that seems like it's impossible, but intimacy can float past us if we let it.
Yeah. And now that I'm thinking of it, the flirtation, send a flirtatious text. Every time you leave the room, give her a kiss. So it's these small micro moments where I think, especially if you've stopped doing them, it feels so hard to restart because I think it opens up this fear of rejection and vulnerability. And so when it's prescribed and they both know about it and they both have agreed to it and they both know it's coming, it's easier to go from that stop to start.
To
So
let yourself
flirtation tends to be the number one thing that I'll prescribe.
Flirtation is a really good one. I think even that word is so playful and fun, and it's a good reminder to couples. It can be a little awkward to start new things and to let old narratives go. So it's a good invitation to say, like, let's try something new. Let's change the story of what you're expecting from one another and try something that aligns more with what you're actually wanting. A rule of thumb I always go by, and I think I actually got this from Wayne Dyer back in the day. Do something that neither one of you feels comfortable with together. So try to learn something new or do something that makes you a little fearful. Learn together.
Yeah, I love that because I think what happens with couples is that we get so hooked on feeling safe.
Mm.
And safe tends to be predictability and consistency, which can be quite stale, right? Like there isn't flirtation in that. There isn't playfulness in that. And
No
that practice,
spontaneity.
yeah. And what that practice you're talking about, it's like rewiring your brain for difference, for something unpredictable and that being an exciting thing and not a bad thing.
It's a wonderful thing. Especially you get to see your person and yourself in a whole new way.
Mhm,
And that's
mhm.
like what we're talking about. Sometimes when you take it for granted or you're so used to one another, it's let's put a new set of glasses on and let you
Yeah.
your person.
Yeah, that's interesting. Esther Perel talks about one of the things that like ignites desire is seeing your partner doing something that they're great at, right?
Yeah.
And so it's because you're seeing them from a different perspective. They're no longer your partner, they're themselves. And we don't get to see that very often, especially if we're raising small children or, when we get into the monotony of life, our partners become very predictable. And so that's something that I've heard her talk about, which I think is really great.
From the couple's perspective in this, what do you think helps couples the most going into couples therapy?
Both people coming in with curiosity is going to be so helpful. Both people coming in wanting to understand themselves better. And what I've realized is that a lot of people come into couples therapy. Sometimes it's to leave, and that's okay too. And so I don't have anything in my mind of like what makes successful couples therapy. It's more of like it ends up being kind of a gauge of where they are within themselves and where they are within the relationship. And I think that being able to come to light is just as fruitful and powerful as walking out fully reconnected and, going in that direction as well. Right? Not what can I get? What can I learn here?
Especially that's kind of what relationships are, right? It's letting us learn with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like the greatest classroom you could possibly imagine, right? Because you get to be in love with someone, which is an amazing feeling and it's a beautiful classroom if you're willing to step into it.
This was another topic. It feels like it's more about redefining what relationships are. Esther's another person that really goes into this a lot. I love her cultural perspective on what marriages historically were when created, especially for women. And then we live in a world now where a relationship can be anything. A marriage can be anything. You can kind of create what you want. A more concise question I even want to ask within that is maybe examples where you've seen people redefine what their relationship is.
Yeah. Examples of it. You know what's really hard is I feel like a lot of the work in couples therapy is resisting that, where it's going, hey, we could have this be anything you want it to be. And that feels like such a scary leap because I think we've been told that it has to look this way for it to be successful and for it to be good. But I think we're all kind of recognizing that nobody can fit into it. I don't see anyone fitting into it. And so I think the biggest shift that I'm seeing is they're redefining what a successful relationship is. That's the biggest one that I'm seeing. A successful relationship is it's moment to moment, right? I'm enjoying this moment right now and I can be fully in this moment with my partner without worrying about what it's going to look like in 5 years.
It feels like it really brings us back to what we were talking about earlier of just kind of the stereotypes and assumptions that you're walking in with. And I know one of my favorite questions to ask clients, individual or couples, is what are your examples or models of a relationship that you would want to experience or emulate yourself? And how often it's like TV, maybe a book, movies.
Absolutely. And I think I noticed like people have a harder time telling me like what they want in a relationship, but they sure can tell me what they don't want. Like I remind people that, the greatest joy of being a therapist is that you sit with so many people. So these assumptions that we have around everybody else is doing it differently is popped. I'm like, I recognize like everyone has a hard time in relationships. Everyone has a hard time in being a human, right? Couples come into a therapy room because they're thinking that like I have all the answers. And I'm like, I don't have the answers. We're all just exploring here. And you guys get to experiment about like what feels right for you two. Because what feels right for you two could be wildly different than what feels right for me. It was so interesting. I was listening to this woman giving a talk kind of on couples therapy. And she was a couples therapist and actually was in couples therapy. And she was saying, he kept bringing up the fact that, I left all the cabinets open and how distressing that was for him. And she was like, I can't believe he's bringing this up in couples therapy. Like, and the therapist goes, shut the cabinets, then shut the cabinets. And I bring that up because it speaks to the way that we look to our partner to make us feel a certain way, or this relationship needs to make us feel a certain way, or it needs to look a certain way for it to feel successful or for me to feel successful within myself. And I think personal responsibility can get so lost when we're in partnership. And so it's going like, well, if what you want, like how do you shift it? If everything stays exactly the same, it can't stay the same if you stay the same. So if you do something different, something will change, but we just don't know in which direction.
It's such a good reminder because again, it's us entering into that scenario going, well, you have to, you didn't, you. And as soon as we go, what can I do?
Mm-hmm.
Do I not like this? Do I want to shift this?
If we think that if our partner changes in this way, then the relationship will change in this way. And it's going, you don't know that.
Idea.
You don't know that.
Yeah.
They may change, you might hate it. Or they may change and then realize they hate it.
Yes.
And it's this attachment with what things need to look like in order for us to feel safe or happy or content versus going, what does this partnership, like, what can it create? What could we create together?
You're reminding me too, it's not just about receiving, but how much of that mindset is about what can I give in a relationship. I think we're also afraid of being taken advantage of or not getting our just desserts from a relationship or being manipulated, which makes sense in all the thousands of ways that it can. But at the end of the day, there's so much to be said about being in service to others and providing and giving to others. And I think a reminder like that is so good. Like if you're pissed off that there's no dinner on the table, you could be really angry at your partner for not doing that yet and not providing that and like do, or you could be like, I'm gonna actually do that. I'm gonna be the one that for everybody makes something special and I'm gonna like put on our favorite music and make it cute. And what does that offer you when you take back that autonomy?
Right. And everyone might go, "Oh my God, you made such a beautiful meal." And then they might be inspired to do it. Like, you miss all these like really beautiful opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
To overflow your cup into others and to
Yeah.
that feels like a good rule of thumb too. It's almost like maybe try some of that first. And then if that doesn't work, like say if you're wanting more attention or like a certain thing and you try doing it yourself, like I'm trying to model for that and give that for, and then you notice it still isn't quite getting picked up or so it feels like a good rule of thumb of like try that first. And then if it's not coming to life, communicate on it, ask for it.
Ask for it. I think also learning how to ask for it. When you say, "I love it when you make dinner," and when I walk through the door, it makes me feel so loved and connected to you. I will tell you your partner will more likely do it than saying, "Why is there never food on the table?" That shuts people down. But when you say, "I love it when you do that. It feels so good. I feel so connected. I just think you're amazing when you do that." People are going to be like, "Okay."
Because that first one feels like attacking. It's like we're both busy. Like we both got stuff. Like I'm not trying to hurt you. So why is like there this assumption that I just didn't do something for you and that was my intent? Versus that other one of like, oh, you just love when I do this. You're just wanting me to do this in this way. That
Mhm.
I'm doing that.
Yeah, because I think we all forget that when someone comes to us and says, "I hate it when you do that," or "Why aren't you doing?" They hear you're a failure. You failed me again. I'm always going to be disappointed in you. Like that is what we hear, right? It is. But when we hear, "God, you are so great. You're so great." We're like, "Yeah, I am great. I am great. I'm going to be great."
Is you're saying that you're reminding me of a couple of sessions. It doesn't feel like it's a tool that I've formulated, but sometimes I like to put a visual on something. And times in with my couples, if I've noticed there's a lot of criticism or judgment statements in that way, I'll like to ask them to kind of pie chart of what you receive. How much of that is like positive, strength based, like encouragement versus how much of it feels like judgment or criticism. And
Mhm.
so eye-opening where people will think like, "Oh, I'm only doing it like 25%." And it's like, well, your partner feels like that's 80% of what they're getting from you is like, you're messing up again. Here you are failing again. And then how that creates a narrative of like, I guess that's our relationship. I'm always failing you.
Yeah, yeah. And I use the bank account analogy, right? Where, in the relationship, there's going to be withdrawals, right? There's always going to be times where we have to give feedback or where we disappoint our partners. And so we have to make sure that there's enough deposits in the bank account to withstand with the withdrawal. So it's going, how many compliments are you giving a day? How many times are you touching your partner? How many times are you stopping to create eye contact? How many times are you picking up a coffee for them without asking? And so when you're doing all of those deposits and then there's that one moment where your partner says, "I really don't like it when you do that," or they communicate in a way that isn't very nice, right? It's not going to hit the same if
Yes.
they've already complimented you 5 times that day. And so that is one homework that I will do is like, make sure you're doing the deposits.
What is that? The manager saying with two positives and then a negative, give you a little compliment and strength focus. So that way, by the time I land on a feedback, it doesn't feel like it's just feedback all.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I can't remember where the research came from, but it's 5 to 1. You need to have 5 positives to 1 negative.
That's good math to keep in mind too.
Mhm,
When you're
mhm.
thinking of how many do I need to do in a day or bringing up a feedback or a criticism, how much does that
How
take
much
out?
of a withdrawal is it? I think it's also different with different people, right? Like, I think for highly sensitive people, that withdrawal, that one little feedback is like a 5 withdrawal, right? For someone who's not quite as, and I don't like to say sensitive, but like sensing, highly sensing, that withdrawal, it's like a 1. And we're all different. And that's where it's saying in couples, it's never going to be even.
Right?
It's going, how do these two interesting, unique, special people create love and partnership together?
So that brings me to another concept, and I hope I'm remembering the name of it right. You had called it your NFL contract, or I don't know anything about football. How do you use that?
Yeah. Well, I know nothing about football, but I do know they renegotiate their contracts every 5 to 7 years, right?
Did
Or
you're
maybe every 2 years. The thing is that I think what happens in partnership is once it's locked in, we kind of stop trying, right? We kind of stop trying. We start placing more expectations. And so I always think about like if we have a partnership and we're renegotiating terms every 2 to 5 years, well, that's going to change how you show up, right? You're not going to be, you're probably going to want to like keep doing the compliments so that when the renegotiation comes up, you have a leg to stand on. When you maybe want to ask for more or you want to renegotiate the contract. And so I like to bring that to couples of like, okay, so if we were renegotiating terms every 2 years and you both knew it, what would be different? And here's the other thing is that we are renegotiating terms every 2 to 5 years. We're just not in agreement to it. And again, in renegotiation, it's a negotiation. It's a back and forth. It's not an ultimatum. And I think we use ultimatums and the word boundaries as like definitives versus going like, okay, I've changed in this way, you've changed in this way. What do we do differently to support those changes versus like, is it going to work? Is it going to work? You change and I change. It's going, no, it can work. It can always work. We just need to figure out what supports that.
When two people want it to work, it'll always work. And I feel like you're giving such a good reminder again of what that fear of loss or of change will prevent us from communicating. Like I'm so afraid of changing what us feels like or our stability levels that I'm just not going to say anything at all. And in reality, we're staying safe for a period of time, but we're really harming the relationship. Most especially if we want to be with that person for 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
We're going to be for doing it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I'm like, the person you married is not the person that you're with right now.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Especially I just think of my own self-development. When I think of myself every 2 years, I'm like, oh, wow. The changes, the insights, the way I feel about things.
Yeah.
Changes.
And like you think about how you've worked through those changes internally and individually, right? Like when we go through changes, we hold on really tight and we don't want to let it go. And then we get forced to kind of let it go. And then we grow from there. Our partners don't know that we've gone through all of that. We just are like, how did you not notice that I changed? Right. Versus like so even in this renegotiation, it's being able to go, let me tell you what I've been going through. Let me tell you how I've changed, because it's really not till we get to the other side do we really recognize the change.
I really love the accountability that's in that for us of like, let me reflect on how I have changed. Like, because it might feel obvious to us, like we're going through it, life is happening with us and boom, I'm different. But if you sit down and ask like, okay, how in the past 2 years have you changed from the start of the to now? What's different? What new insight? What do you value that's differently? What do you need there's going to be a lot.
And I think about, because I work with a lot of parents who are going through, having a baby to 5 years old. Like that is a massive amount of change. And it's interesting because a lot of the time we're like, well, she became a mother or well, he became a father. And I'm like, the identity shift that both of those people go through is so significant. And it's not until we kind of get to the other side, we can even explain that to our partner. But our partner's just like, oh, well, she became a mother, which means what, right? And what does that mean? And what does that mean for our partnership, right? We're no longer individual people. We're mothers and fathers in a new type of partnership.
Yeah, that contract on both ends. I think I usually use a lot of time of like coming to the table in that way with friendships, with romantic relationships. Like if we're doing life right, we're going to change over time. And then I want to sit down and I want you to know how I've changed. And I want to know how you've changed. And then what does that mean of our relationship?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember having a supervisor one time say to me, I had a couple that, one of them wasn't being very communicative. And I'm like, it would just work if they would just be a little bit more communicative. And my supervisor said to me, no, they're just not communicating in the way that you want them to. And I was like, yeah. And even for couples, it's going like, okay, well, where is it most comfortable to communicate? Sometimes it's not going to be in the therapy room or over the kitchen table. Sometimes it's in bed after you were intimate. That's a great time to communicate. Or maybe it's on vacation, or maybe it's when he's going fishing. Maybe it's, after you came back from working out. It's also about crafting opportunities where that flow is just there.
It's making me curious about maybe advice that you would give to couples that are wanting to seek therapy, how they might know a therapist is a good fit for them.
I always tell my couples, make sure that you're interviewing the therapist together. Don't let just one person do it, because you're already kind of creating some type of tension and siding. So make sure you're interviewing both of them together. And one if one person is like, it's a hard no, don't push it. Find someone else. There's so many different types of therapists. And it's more of like, and I also do my consultations on Zoom. So having people see your therapist's face, see how they talk, see how they move, and you'll feel it. You can feel it in your body if it's a yes, and you can feel it if it's a no. And so trust that.
I think that's a really good rule of thumb. It's so important that both parties be aligned and comfortable with working with that therapist.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely have both of you there. Do the consultation, get a moment to get a feel for them. The best way I've always found to put it is, it feels to me like a bit of like best friend vibes. Like, when you just meet somebody, it's easy to talk to them, to find a cadence and understanding. It's like, that's the kind of magic you're looking for.
Yeah, I love that. And I also I tell everyone, for even individual therapy, if your therapist says something that rubs you the wrong way, tell them. They will absolutely be able to handle it. And if they can't, then that's not the therapist for you. But, we're not mind readers, and we get it wrong sometimes, and we miss the mark sometimes. And so part of being able to communicate that is what's going to make this relationship work really well.
Let's bring it back to that collaboration again. Can't be mind readers. So if you feel something, say it.
Yeah. Yeah. You won't offend us. You can't offend us.
Can't do it. Let me ask you, anything in general that you hope people get to learn and know about you as a practitioner that we haven't
Yeah.
been
So,
over yet?
I'm a trauma therapist first. So I'm always going to bring in the body. I'm always going to bring in regulation. That is one of the biggest points of my couples work. And a lot of the ways that I do that is through humor. I bring a lot of laughter and play, which is super regulating to the body. And then I always say I am a training junkie, right? So I fill my toolbox, and then we work together to figure out which tools work for you. I've also created an online group coaching for people who are wanting to heal how they show up in relationships. So I always say it is like the nuts and bolts of the work that I do. And so if anybody is interested in that, it's about healing yourself in the relationship, but that can also heal your relationship. So it's for people who are in partnership and people who are individually working on their own. And so that's all on my website.
That is so valuable. It's everything we were talking about. Especially if it's repeated or you're noticing that within all of your relationships, give yourself the time to take a real good look at that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fun work. I promise it's fun work.
Well, let me also check in with you, Erin, about where can everybody find you?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. It's Erin Valente, which is my name. And then my website for all of my practices and group coaching is healingthehumanexperience.com.
Awesome. And I will make sure to put all of your information in the caption too. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. I hope we can do it again. I feel like we touched on so many more topics that I want to be able to go into with you, but it's been lovely to have the time, and I appreciate it so much for you just sharing yourself.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. I always love talking to other therapists.
We need one another, right?
We do. It just brings the juices up.
Well, with that, everybody, thank you for being here. Continue to live well, and we will see you in the next one.